The stars glimmered like tiny jewels scattered across the black velvet of space. From the observation deck of the Stellar Dawn, one of the Galactic Empire's largest capital ships, 3 women watched silently. Alara, Sienna, and Kayla, all newly married to some of the Empire's most feared generals, had become the quiet pride of human resilience in a galaxy that often underestimated their kind. Alara rested her hand on the cool glass of the viewport, her mind tracing the endless streams of light from distant star systems. She had always loved space, the vastness, the unknown, but now it carried a strange weight. Only a week ago she had exchanged vows with General Darius, a man known for his ruthlessness in strategy, yet gentle in private. She had seen a different side of him, a human side, one that could laugh, worry, and care. Sienna leaned against a console, scrolling through a holographic display that showed star charts and fleet movements. Her husband, General Marcus, had often impressed her with his intelligence. Marcus could calculate probabilities in seconds, predict enemy movements, and plan entire campaigns before others had even understood the problem. Yet in her presence he was patient and kind, showing a human warmth that many in the Empire never expected from a military leader. Kayla, the youngest of the 3, held a small book of poems. She often found solace in words and imagining worlds untouched by politics or war. Her husband, General Jalen, had been notorious for his decisive actions in battle, but Kayla knew him differently. She had seen the man who would stay up all night to comfort a frightened child or help an alien crew member navigate the complexities of human etiquette. The piece of the observation deck shattered with a sharp alert. Red lights flashed and a calm but urgent voice filled the room. Attention. Official report. 3 human civilians, Alara Vance, Sienna Kale, and Kayla Rin, deceased. Caused catastrophic planetary accident. Alara froze, staring at the display. What do they mean? Her voice trembled, though she tried to steady it. Sienna's fingers hovered over the console. That can't be right. There must be some mistake. Kayla's book slipped from her hands, forgotten. A planetary accident? But we were on the ship. We left the planet days ago. Moments later, the generals entered. Darius, Marcus, and Jalen moved quickly, but with controlled calm. The crew parted for them, knowing that these humans were not only leaders of fleets, but also figures capable of brilliant strategy and unflinching courage. Darius's face was a mask, but his eyes betrayed the storm within. He stepped toward the holo display, scanning the report. Accident? On what planet? His voice was steady, but each word carried weight. A communications officer stammered, Sir, the report says Planet Tyran 5, a mining facility collapse. All 3 were visiting. Darius clenched his fist. He had trusted the Empire's systems, their regulations, and protocols. Yet something about the report did not sit right. Not with him. Marcus adjusted the holographic charts, cross-referencing fleet data with the accident report. I don't understand. Their schedules show they were aboard the Stellar Dawn the entire time. Travel logs confirm it. Jalen's jaw tightened. Then this is not an accident. His voice, usually calm and commanding, carried a sharp edge. Someone is lying. The 3 men exchanged a silent understanding. They had fought countless battles, faced enemies who sought to destroy entire civilizations. But this was personal. This was beyond strategy. It was a challenge to their humanity. Later that day, the generals convened in a hidden chamber, a room used for confidential meetings away from prying eyes. The walls were lined with star maps, encrypted data streams, and holographic projectors. They were not just generals. They were humans capable of deep thought, analysis, and patience, and now they were determined to uncover the truth. Darius started. We know the official story is false. Tyran 5. The timing does not match, and the Empire's report is too neat, too clean. Someone is trying to hide something. Marcus nodded. I've already started cross-checking ship logs, fleet schedules, and communication signals. There are anomalies, small, almost invisible, but enough to suggest manipulation. Whoever did this, they are skilled at deception. Jalen paced the chamber, his mind racing. We need to be careful. If we confront this too openly, the Empire will clamp down. We must investigate quietly, strategically, like a game of chess. Alara, Sienna, and Kayla's names echoed in their thoughts, not just as victims, but as symbols of human resilience. These women had brought out the best in them, showing courage, empathy, and the ability to inspire. and now their absence was a void that demanded action. They began reviewing every piece of data available: ship logs, encrypted messages, planetary records, even crew memos. Each general contributed his unique skill. Darius analyzed tactical movements looking for patterns. Marcus dissected communication codes and probabilities. Jalen focused on behavioral patterns of those in power, predicting who might benefit from their wives' deaths. Hours turned into days. The generals barely slept, driven by grief and determination. Yet even in this dark time, their human traits shone. They supported each other, shared memories of their brides, and maintained a calm that inspired their crews. Alien officers watched in awe. Humans, they realized, were unlike any other species they had encountered, capable of both emotion and logic, of strategy and compassion in perfect balance. One evening, as the ship glided past a nebula glowing in pink and blue, Darius paused on the observation deck. He spoke softly, almost to himself. They always wanted to see the stars up close. They believed in the beauty of this universe. And now we must honor that belief. Marcus joined him, by uncovering the truth, by showing that human intelligence and resolve cannot be silenced. Jalen placed a hand on the rail. We will find them. Whoever is behind this, they will see that humans do not falter, even in grief. We are not just soldiers or generals. We are humans, and we will honor our own. As the stellar dawn sailed silently through the glittering stars, the three generals set a course not just for investigation, but for justice. They would not rely on brute force or imperial authority. They would rely on what made humans special: creativity, intelligence, and the strength of heart. Across the ship, alien officers whispered among themselves, curious and slightly fearful. Humans were unpredictable. They were relentless, and in their grief, they had begun a quiet storm, a storm that no Empire protocol could withstand. The first steps of the investigation were simple: gather information, identify anomalies, and observe patterns. But even these small acts highlighted the uniqueness of humans. While other species might have reacted with rage, the generals used patience, logic, and subtlety. Every observation, every calculation, every quiet plan demonstrated human excellence. Weeks passed. The first threads of the mystery began to reveal themselves. Minor inconsistencies in Empire records, subtle errors in planetary reports, encrypted messages meant to be unseen, all pointed to a faction operating within the Empire itself. A faction that had underestimated humans, assuming that grief would weaken them. They were wrong. Humans, when driven by purpose and honor, became unstoppable. Late one night, the generals met in their chamber again. Holographic images of the Empire's central systems hovered in the air. Darius's finger traced a faint anomaly in the signal flow. This is our first real lead. Whoever did this is clever, but not clever enough. Humans will find them. Marcus's eyes glinted with determination. And when we do, we will make sure the truth is known. Not through violence, but through strategy and brilliance. Jalen nodded. For Ilara, Sienna, and Kayla, their lives will not be forgotten. Their memory will inspire change. The three generals looked out at the stars once more. The universe was vast, mysterious, and often dangerous. But humans had something the galaxy could never predict: their minds, their hearts, and their indomitable spirit. The stellar dawn sailed silently through the endless dark of space, its sleek hull cutting through the void like a silver blade. Inside, the three generals, Darius, Marcus, and Jalen, worked tirelessly. Grief still lingered, but it had transformed into determination. They would uncover the truth behind the deaths of their wives, and they would do it with the one weapon humans had always mastered: intelligence. The first step was simple: follow the anomalies. Marcus had spent days scanning the Empire's communication networks, analyzing streams of messages meant to remain hidden. He noticed a pattern that no alien officer had detected: a faint signal embedded in routine fleet transmissions, an invisible thread of data that seemed intentionally designed to mislead. This is clever, Marcus said quietly as he examined the signal. Whoever did this knows our systems better than most humans know themselves. But humans are adaptable. We can follow it. Darius leaned over, his eyes scanning the holographic projection of the signal. It leads to Tyran 5, he said, his voice calm but edged with intensity. The planet from the so-called accident. Jalen frowned. But Tyran 5 is heavily monitored. If someone wanted to hide their actions, they would make sure no one could access its logs. That's true, Marcus replied. But every system, no matter how advanced, has weaknesses. Patterns of behavior, overlooked routines, small mistakes that even the most meticulous planners make. The generals decided to split tasks. Darius would analyze tactical and fleet patterns, searching for discrepancies in troop movements and deployment logs. Marcus would follow the hidden communications, decoding signals and messages to uncover the faction's intentions. Jalen would study political behaviors and personal connections among Empire officers to identify who might gain from the deaths of the human brides. Days turned into nights. Though aboard the Stellar Dawn, time was relative. The crew barely noticed as the generals moved through data, holograms floating around them, calculations and diagrams filling the room. Alien officers watched from the edges, quietly astonished. Humans, they realized, worked in ways that were unpredictable, fluid, and precise. They did not rush blindly into action. They calculated, observed, and adapted. The first breakthrough came from Marcus. He had been decoding a series of encrypted messages, each appearing ordinary but hiding subtle deviations from standard Empire protocol. One message, flagged as routine logistics correspondence, contained minute alterations in timestamps and coordinates. Marcus's eyes lit up. "Look at this," he said, bringing Darius and Jalen to the display. This message was meant to appear routine, but the sender slipped a location code for a facility on Tyran 5. It's where our wives were supposed to be. But here's the catch. It was scheduled for maintenance weeks before. Someone deliberately redirected operations to that site. Darius's jaw tightened. So it wasn't an accident. They planned it, but why? Who would benefit from killing civilians aboard our own ships? That's what we need to find out, Jalen said, already scanning profiles and fleet rosters. Someone within the Empire, someone who underestimated humans. They assumed our grief would make us weak. They were wrong. Their investigation led them to a remote command node orbiting a neutral star. It was heavily guarded, or so it seemed. Using human ingenuity, the generals devised a plan to access the node without alerting the Empire. They employed subtle diversions, holographic decoys to mimic fleet activity, signal jamming to mask their presence, and encrypted transmissions designed to look like routine traffic. When they arrived, the node appeared calm and orderly, a model of Empire efficiency. But humans were skilled at reading beyond appearances. Darius noticed a minor irregularity in the energy readings, a fluctuation too precise to be accidental. "This way," he whispered, leading Marcus and Jalen through a maintenance tunnel that bypassed the main security systems. Every step required patience and precision, qualities humans often displayed when other species relied on brute strength or rigid logic. Inside the node, they found proof. Files and logs had been altered to cover up the truth, but subtle inconsistencies remained. Human attention to detail allowed them to spot it immediately. A set of travel orders with unusual authorization signatures, fleet logs with slight gaps, and messages deleted in a way that left traces, a puzzle only a human mind could piece together so quickly. Jalen held a data pad. "These signatures, they belonged to the Administrative Oversight Division. But the messages were sent secretly by a minor faction within the Empire. They wanted to manipulate human generals by targeting their wives, thinking it would destabilize us." Marcus shook his head. "They don't understand humans. Grief doesn't make us weak. It sharpens us." As they decrypted more messages, a clearer picture emerged. The faction responsible was small but ambitious, seeking to gain influence by removing humans from positions of power. Their arrogance was staggering. They assumed humans would crumble under personal loss. They had forgotten that humans could turn tragedy into strategy, emotion into action. The generals realized they needed more than data. They needed allies. The faction might have underestimated humans, but it had underestimated the ability of humans to unite other species. Across the galaxy, numerous civilizations had suffered under the Empire's bureaucracy and oppression. Humans had the potential to rally these civilizations not with threats or aggression, but with persuasion, empathy, and vision. "We need to reach out," Darius said. "Other species are affected by the Empire's decisions. If we show them the truth, they will join us. But trust is fragile," Jalen warned. "We cannot just demand it. We must earn it." Marcus nodded. "And humans are good at that. Diplomacy, understanding, subtle persuasion. Skills others often ignore. We'll need them all." Their first contact was with the Larathians, a bird-like species known for their rigid codes and suspicion of outsiders. Humans approached carefully, presenting data, evidence, and stories. They did not demand allegiance. They demonstrated logic, compassion, and shared purpose. At first, the Larathians were skeptical. They had been manipulated before, tricked by promises from the Empire, but humans had a way of speaking that combined clarity and emotion. They shared the story of Alara, Sienna, and Kayla, not as victims but as catalysts for justice. "Your empire hides its mistakes," Darius said to the council. "They think humans are weak. But humans turn grief into action, pain into strategy, and loyalty into leadership. Join us and we can ensure fairness, transparency, and justice." Skepticism began to fade. The council listened, asked questions, and eventually agreed to provide intelligence. Humans had bridged the gap not through coercion but through understanding. Next, they reached the Corellians, an amphibious species whose society prized logic above all else. The Corellians respected data, patterns, and strategic insight. The humans presented evidence from the command node and fleet logs. Marcus highlighted inconsistencies and manipulations, showing calculations and projections that even the Corellians could not refute. By the end of the meeting, the Corellians were allies. Humans had impressed them not through force but through intellect. With each new species allied to their cause, the generals' network grew. They were no longer isolated humans grieving in silence. They were leaders of a coalition, a force that the Empire could not easily ignore. Back on the Stellar Dawn, the generals gathered to discuss the next steps. "We have the data," Marcus said. "We have allies, but we cannot confront the faction openly yet. We must expose them carefully, ensuring the Empire sees the truth without causing unnecessary conflict." Darius nodded. "Agreed. Our strength is in strategy, patience, and intelligence. Humans can achieve what brute force cannot. We will show that," Jalen added, "and our wives' memory guides us. Their lives inspire this effort. Every decision we make honors them, not just in revenge but in justice and fairness. That is the human way." The stars outside shimmered like silent witnesses to the humans' resolve. Alien officers aboard the ship observed quietly, noting the humans' discipline, creativity, and unshakable moral compass. They began to understand something crucial. Humans were unpredictable in the best way. They could turn grief into strategy, emotion into planning, and sorrow into unity. As the Stellar Dawn continued its journey, the generals finalized their plans. Next, they would use their intelligence network to gather more evidence, identify every member of the faction, and prepare to expose them, all while maintaining peace, avoiding unnecessary conflict, and staying true to the qualities that made humans extraordinary. The galaxy, vast and indifferent, had underestimated humanity once. The mistake would not be repeated. Humans could think, adapt, and inspire in ways that no other species could match. And when the time came, the Empire itself would have to acknowledge the brilliance, patience, and resilience of the human race. For Darius, Marcus, and Jalen, the path was clear. The memory of Alara, Sienna, and Kayla would guide them. They were not just generals, they were humans capable of strategy, compassion, and brilliance. And with those gifts, they would uncover the truth, honor their wives, and show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. The investigation was only beginning. But the first threads had been pulled, and the tapestry of conspiracy was starting to unravel. And humans, as always, were ready to lead the way. The galaxy was vast, filled with stars, planets, and civilizations that had existed for millennia. But even in such immensity, the humans stood out, not for power, not for size, but for their intelligence, creativity, and unshakable spirit. Darius, Marcus, and Jalen had spent weeks following the threads of the mysterious faction within the Empire. Each discovery brought them closer to the truth about their wives' deaths, but it also revealed the depth of corruption hidden in the Empire's bureaucracy. Alone, they would never be able to challenge it. Together, they could change the balance. The first step was outreach. The generals decided to contact civilizations that had been marginalized by the Empire, those whose voices were silenced, whose concerns were ignored. They needed allies, not soldiers, not armies, but intelligent, willing minds. Their first destination was the planet Virelia, home of the Larathians. The bird-like species had long been wary of humans, but the generals had proven their intelligence and resourcefulness during initial contacts. Now it was time to strengthen the alliance. The council hall on Virelia was enormous, filled with light that shimmered off crystalline structures. The Larathians perched on platforms, wings folded, watching the humans approach. Darius stepped forward. "We come not to demand allegiance," he said, his voice calm and respectful. "We come to share knowledge and truth. Your world has suffered from bureaucracy that values power over justice. So has ours. Together we can ensure that intelligence, fairness, and morality guide decisions in this galaxy." The Larathian leader, a tall figure named Seralith, tilted his head, observing, "And what makes you humans different? Why should we trust you?" Marcus spoke next, his tone precise. "Humans are capable of learning quickly, adapting to situations and understanding perspectives different from their own. Our intelligence is not just in technology or strategy, it is in empathy, reasoning, and collaboration. We turn setbacks into opportunity. We honor those we love, and we do not break under pressure," Jalen added. "We have suffered loss. We are grieving, but we are not weak. We have discovered a conspiracy within the Empire that affects all of us. If we act carefully together, we can prevent further injustice," the Larathians whispered among themselves. They were known for valuing evidence over emotion. Marcus presented the data: communication logs, altered fleet orders, and hidden transmissions. Each piece was clear, logical, undeniable. Seralith considered. "Humans do not act impulsively," he finally said. "They analyze, plan, and use wisdom. That is rare. You may have our support." The humans bowed slightly, not in submission but in respect. Trust was earned, not demanded, and they had earned it. Next, they journeyed to the oceanic planet Kirella, home of the Corellians, a species renowned for their cold logic. They had no emotion in their decision-making, only evidence and strategy. Marcus led the discussions, showing calculations, projections, and inconsistencies in the Empire's official reports. At first, the Corellians were skeptical. "Your evidence is compelling," said the Corellian analyst Tellus, "but emotion clouds judgment. How can we trust your interpretation?" Darius smiled. "We are not asking for blind trust. Look at the data. Follow the numbers. The truth does not depend on our feelings. Humans simply notice connections others miss, that is all." Slowly, the Corellians accepted the logic. Marcus demonstrated patterns that had gone unnoticed for months: fleet reroutings, hidden signals, and discrepancies in planetary records. Every observation pointed to the same conclusion: the faction within the Empire was real, and its actions were deliberate. By the time the humans returned to the stellar dawn, they had allies from multiple systems. A coalition of minds had begun to form, species who valued reasoning, evidence, and fairness. Back on the ship, the generals gathered to strategize. "We have allies," Darius said, projecting a holographic map of the galaxy with key locations marked. "Now we must coordinate. We cannot expose the faction too soon, but we can start gathering evidence and preparing the galaxy to see the truth." Jalen leaned over the map. "Each species brings something unique. Larathians excel at communication and observation, Corellians at logical analysis, and we humans combine both intelligence and adaptability. Together we cover strengths that no Empire faction can ignore." Marcus nodded. "And we must act carefully. Our moves will be subtle. Every action must maintain the appearance of normalcy, while allowing us to track the faction's members and uncover their plans." The first operation of the coalition was simple yet ingenious. They needed to test the faction's communication systems without alerting them. Humans were adept at creative thinking, and Darius proposed using a network of harmless decoy transmissions. These signals mimicked routine fleet activity, but contained hidden patterns only humans and their allies could detect. Over the next several days, the coalition executed the plan. Alien species marveled at human ingenuity. Messages bounced between fleets and stations, creating a complex web of information that humans could interpret, but that appeared meaningless to anyone else. The faction noticed anomalies, but not their source. Humans had outsmarted them without confrontation. Meanwhile, Marcus continued decoding signals and tracking hidden communications. Each day brought new clues: orders issued under false names, unauthorized reroutings, and encrypted messages indicating the faction's intentions. The generals shared this information with their allies, who helped analyze and verify it. One day, Darius received a personal communication from a member of the faction, unaware that their words were being monitored. "The humans are too clever. If they continue, our plan may fail. Prepare contingency measures." Darius read the message silently and then turned to Marcus and Jalen. "They know we are aware. But awareness is only the first step. Now we control the next step," Jalen smiled. "And humans excel at control. Patience, foresight, adaptability. We will expose them when the time is right." The coalition grew stronger. Meetings were held across star systems, connecting species who had never interacted before. Humans acted as mediators, using humor, empathy, and clear reasoning to resolve misunderstandings. Other species respected humans' ability to balance logic with emotion, a combination they themselves often lacked. One meeting was particularly challenging. Representatives of 3 rival species, historically hostile to each other, had to agree on sharing intelligence. Tensions ran high, voices raised, and old grudges threatened to break the discussion. Darius intervened. "Listen, our goal is not to dominate or win over each other. Our goal is truth. We share what we know to prevent injustice. Humans have learned that strength is in cooperation, not conflict." Marcus presented calculations showing how pooling resources would exponentially increase their chances of exposing the faction. Jalen added historical examples of cooperation leading to survival in harsh conditions. Slowly, the rival species began to listen, then reason, then agree. By the end of the week, the coalition had grown in both size and cohesion. Humans had demonstrated what they did best: intelligence, adaptability, leadership, and the ability to unite diverse species under a shared purpose. As the stellar dawn continued its journey through the galaxy, the generals reflected on their progress. They had lost loved ones, yet their grief had become a driving force for justice. They had faced deception, yet human patience and cleverness allowed them to see through it. They had navigated political complexity, yet humans' empathy and reasoning had earned them allies. Darius stood on the observation deck, staring at the stars. "Our wives believed in the goodness of the universe," he said softly. "They saw beauty, curiosity, and possibility. In honoring them, we create a galaxy where truth and justice are valued." Marcus added, "We are humans. We do not rely solely on strength. We use our minds, our hearts, and our will, and together we can achieve what no single species could." Jalen smiled. "The faction within the Empire underestimates us. But humans turn disadvantage into advantage. We turn loss into strategy, and when the time comes, they will see that intelligence, cooperation, and moral courage are forces no one can ignore." The coalition prepared for the next stage, identifying key members of the faction and uncovering their ultimate plan. Each day brought new discoveries, new challenges, and new opportunities to demonstrate human brilliance. And across the galaxy, whispers began to spread. Humans were not just clever soldiers or tacticians. They were leaders, mediators, and thinkers capable of uniting civilizations. They were a species to be respected, not feared. The journey of the 3 generals had already begun to change the galaxy. Their grief had turned into strategy. Their loss had become a call to action. And their brilliance, combined with the intelligence of allies, would shine brighter than any star in the void. The galaxy watched, unaware that humans were quietly shaping the future. Not through violence or domination, but through intelligence, insight, and the extraordinary power of their minds. The alliance of minds had begun, and humans, once underestimated, were at its center. The stellar dawn glided through the quiet darkness of space, carrying with it not just 3 human generals, but the hopes of a growing coalition of species. Darius, Marcus, and Jalen had built something remarkable, an alliance founded on intelligence, strategy, and trust. Yet the real challenge lay ahead. The faction within the Empire had hidden its actions for months, but their arrogance and underestimation of humans had created small weaknesses. Every message they sent, every secret operation they conducted left traces. And humans, with their unique ability to notice patterns and adapt quickly, could follow those traces where no other species could. The generals gathered in the strategy room, holograms of the Empire's command structures hovering around them. Their allies, Larathians, Corellians, and representatives from other civilizations joined remotely. The goal was clear: expose the faction and ensure that justice was done, without causing unnecessary violence. Darius began. We have identified the key locations of their operations. They are spread across several star systems, but their communication network ties them together. If we can intercept these signals and reveal the patterns, the Empire itself will see the truth. Marcus added, we cannot confront them directly. The moment we act overtly, they will retreat and hide, and we will lose the advantage. Instead, we will use strategy, intelligence, and creativity. Humans excel at this. Others may rely on strength or rigid logic. We will rely on insight. Jalen leaned forward. We will need to divide our attention carefully. Each of us will oversee a sector, coordinating with our allies. Small actions, precise and calculated, will lead to exposure of the entire network. Timing and subtlety are key. The first stage of the operation involved creating controlled distractions. Using human ingenuity, the generals designed holographic decoys and false fleet movements. Alien observers were amazed at how humans could orchestrate such complexity with calm precision. The decoys mimicked routine patrols, fleet maneuvers, and even communications, masking the coalition's true actions. Over several days, the coalition implemented the plan. Communications were subtly redirected, signals intercepted and decoded, and the faction began to respond. Small mistakes appeared in their operations. Messages sent too quickly, authorizations repeated incorrectly, and hidden codes inadvertently revealed. Humans notice patterns others overlook, Marcus explained to the allies. Every small error builds a larger picture. Patience and observation are more powerful than brute force. The second stage involved infiltrating a central communications hub. The faction's hub was heavily guarded, both by automated systems and by officers loyal to the conspirators. But humans, with their combination of logic and creativity, devised a solution that required neither violence nor recklessness. Darius outlined the plan. We will access the hub through maintenance channels. The automated defenses are programmed to ignore routine maintenance routines. By blending in with authorized signals, we can enter without raising alarms. Once inside, we extract the hidden communications, revealing the full extent of the faction's network. The plan required coordination. The Raythians monitored external communications, alerting the humans to any potential interference. Corellians analyzed code and security systems, identifying weaknesses and suggesting precise pathways. Humans, meanwhile, coordinated movements, anticipating every possible reaction and preparing contingencies. The operation began. The stellar dawn approached the hub, silent and precise. Humans led the infiltration, moving through maintenance tunnels and bypassing security systems with skill that astonished the alien allies. Every step was calculated, every action deliberate. Inside the hub, the generals found what they had hoped for: hidden communications, falsified logs, and evidence of deliberate manipulation. Marcus quickly decrypted the files, revealing the faction's plans, their members, and their methods. This is it, he whispered. Everything we suspected and more. Jalen studied the data. They underestimated humans completely. They assumed grief would weaken us. They assumed our intelligence could not match their cunning. They were wrong. With the evidence in hand, the generals devised the final stage, exposing the faction to the Empire without direct confrontation. They broadcast carefully curated messages to key leaders across the Empire, ensuring that the truth would reach those in power. The messages contained clear, undeniable evidence, showing manipulation, falsified records, and intentional targeting of human civilians. As the transmissions spread, reactions were immediate. Officers loyal to the Empire's integrity were shocked. The faction scrambled, realizing that humans had not only uncovered their plans, but had done so without a single act of violence. Darius addressed the coalition. This is human strategy at work. Observation, patience, creativity, and foresight. We have exposed the faction, but our strength lies in doing so without unnecessary conflict. This is what humans excel at. The allies celebrated quietly, knowing that a major threat had been neutralized, yet the humans remained focused, analyzing every response, anticipating the faction's next move. The faction attempted to cover its tracks, but humans had already anticipated this. By monitoring secondary communications, the generals traced attempts to alter records and falsify logs. Every action by the faction created a new pattern, and humans, with their unique combination of logical thinking and intuition, deciphered each one. In the midst of the operation, Darius reflected on their journey. They had started with grief, with the loss of those they loved most. That grief had driven them not into rage but into brilliance. Their loss had become a lens sharpening perception, focus, and strategy. Jalen spoke quietly. We are humans. Grief does not break us. It guides us. It strengthens our mind and purpose. That is why the Empire underestimated us and why they will pay attention now. Marcus added, humans are unpredictable. Other species follow rules, patterns, or strict logic. We combine analysis with creativity, observation with intuition, knowledge with empathy. That is why we lead, why we inspire, why we succeed. The final act of the operation was a carefully timed demonstration. The generals arranged for a holographic presentation of the evidence to be viewed by key Empire leaders. It was precise, factual, and undeniable. The faction's actions were revealed, their motives exposed, and the Empire had no choice but to acknowledge the truth. As the final transmissions reached the highest authorities, the faction members attempted to flee, but the humans had already mapped their escape routes. The coalition ensured that none could evade responsibility. And still, no violence was necessary. The brilliance of the plan lay in human intellect and patience. When the operation concluded, the generals gathered in the observation deck once again. The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to human brilliance. We have done it, Darius said softly. Not through war, not through force, but through intelligence, creativity, and patience. Marcus smiled. Humans excel where others falter. We plan, observe, adapt, and inspire. We have shown the galaxy the power of human intellect. Jalen looked at the stars, remembering their wives.
Lara, Sienna, Kayla.
This is for you. Their memory guided every decision, every calculation, every action. They inspire humans not just in strength but in wisdom. Alien allies observed in awe. Humans had succeeded where others might have failed. They had exposed corruption, protected their coalition, and honored their loved ones, all without violence. The galaxy began to take notice. Humans were extraordinary, not because of brute strength or sheer numbers, but because of intelligence, adaptability, and moral courage. As the stellar dawn continued its voyage, the generals prepared for the next challenge, ensuring that the exposed faction could never harm others again, and using their coalition to promote justice across the Empire. The operation was a triumph, a testament to human capability. Across alien systems, whispers spread of the humans who could solve impossible problems, unite diverse civilizations, and achieve victory without conflict. For Darius, Marcus, and Jalen, the mission had become more than justice. It was a demonstration of what humans could accomplish when guided by intellect, empathy, and determination. The galaxy had underestimated them once. It would not make the same mistake again. The galaxy had changed. Across countless star systems, whispers spread of the humans who had uncovered a hidden faction within the Empire, revealed its schemes, and done so without a single act of unnecessary violence. Darius, Marcus, and Jalen had turned grief into purpose, tragedy into strategy, and loss into a lesson in intelligence and moral courage. But their work was not yet finished. Justice had been served in part, but the memory of Lara, Sienna, and Kayla demanded more than victories in secrecy. Their lives, brief yet full of courage and grace, deserved recognition and a lasting legacy. The three generals convened on the stellar dawn's observation deck, gazing at the endless expanse of stars. Each star, distant and luminous, reminded them of the endless possibilities humans could reach when guided by intellect and morality. We have done what we set out to do, Darius said softly, his voice carrying the weight of months of effort. But we must ensure this victory endures. The Empire must learn from this, and the galaxy must know what humans are capable of. Marcus nodded. The coalition is strong. The evidence is undeniable. But we must cement human influence not by domination, but by example. By creating systems of fairness, intelligence, and cooperation, Jalen added, and we must honor them. Lara, Sienna, and Kayla deserve that much. Their lives were not lost in vain. They inspired humans to act, to think, to unite. That inspiration must continue. Their first step was public acknowledgement. Using the Empire's own channels, the generals and their coalition presented their findings in a neutral, carefully measured broadcast. They outlined the conspiracy, revealed the methods, and highlighted the human traits that had uncovered it: intelligence, creativity, empathy, and resilience. The broadcast made waves across the galaxy. Officers, diplomats, and citizens alike were astonished. Humans, who had often been underestimated, were now celebrated, not for aggression or dominance, but for brilliance, leadership, and moral courage. From Virelia to Corella, species that had once doubted humans now acknowledged them as equals in intelligence and character. Alliances deepened, agreements were strengthened, and the coalition expanded. But the generals did not stop there. They recognized that exposure alone was insufficient. The systems that allowed such a faction to rise needed reform. Darius proposed a council, a human-led interstellar tribunal designed to oversee transparency, ethics, and fairness in decision-making. It would include representatives from allied species, creating a system that balanced human ingenuity with alien perspectives. The council will prevent abuse, Darius explained. It will ensure that intelligence and moral courage guide actions, not just power or bureaucracy. Marcus added, humans have a unique ability to bridge gaps between species. We combine logic with empathy, creativity with planning. By leading this council, we show the galaxy that leadership can be fair, intelligent, and principled. Jalen concluded, and every action we take will honor our wives. Ilara, Sienna, and Kayla inspired us to act. This council will be a living tribute to them, ensuring their values shape the galaxy. The council's first meeting was held aboard a neutral space station, orbiting a star whose light shimmered across the sleek structure. Representatives from dozens of civilizations attended. Humans were at the center, not as rulers, but as mediators and leaders, guiding discussions with clarity, patience, and insight. One of the council's first tasks was to review interstellar governance policies. Humans noticed subtle flaws that had been overlooked for centuries: gaps in communication, loopholes in enforcement, and practices that allowed corruption to grow. The coalition worked together to propose solutions, always emphasizing cooperation rather than control. During the deliberations, Darius recalled a lesson he had learned from Ilara. She believed that even the smallest voice could make a difference, he told the council. We must ensure that every species, every individual can be heard. Intelligence and fairness thrive when all perspectives are considered. Marcus and Jalen echoed the sentiment. Humans had learned to value both data and emotion, logic and empathy. They used both to guide discussions, earning the respect of even the most skeptical council members. Beyond governance, the generals also focused on education and inspiration. They funded programs across allied civilizations to teach strategic thinking, problem-solving, and ethical decision-making. These programs emphasized human values: curiosity, creativity, courage, and compassion. In a quiet moment aboard the Stellar Dawn, the three generals reflected on their journey. The galaxy had tested them, the Empire had challenged them, and tragedy had struck them. Yet humans had prevailed, not through violence, but through brilliance, patience, and moral integrity. Darius spoke first. We have changed the galaxy, but the most important change is within ourselves. Grief became purpose, loss became insight, and love became a guide for every decision we made. Marcus added, humans are extraordinary because we balance intellect and heart. Other species rely on one or the other, but we combine both. That is why the coalition trusts us. That is why we lead, Jalen smiled. And that is why our wives' memory will endure. They inspired us to be better, to act with honor, and to leave a legacy that will last far longer than we ever could have imagined. In the following months, the council implemented reforms across the Empire. Hidden factions were dismantled, protocols were strengthened, and interstellar law emphasized fairness and transparency. The galaxy had been transformed not through conquest, but through intelligence, moral courage, and human leadership. On the anniversary of their wives' deaths, the generals organized a memorial on a distant moon, orbiting a sun that bathed the surface in gentle light. Representatives from dozens of species attended, laying flowers, sharing stories, and honoring the lives of Ilara, Sienna, and Kayla. Darius spoke first. We honor three human women who showed courage, compassion, and love. Their memory guided our actions and continues to inspire us all. They remind us that even in tragedy, humans can achieve greatness. Marcus continued, "Through them, we have learned that intelligence combined with empathy can change the galaxy. We have learned that patience, strategy, and moral courage are more powerful than any weapon." Jalen concluded, "And we promise that their legacy will endure. Humans will continue to act with wisdom, to unite civilizations, and to honor those we love through every decision we make." As the sun set over the memorial, a quiet sense of peace filled the air. The galaxy had seen humans at their best, not as conquerors or warriors, but as thinkers, leaders, and moral guides. Back aboard the Stellar Dawn, the generals looked out at the stars. Each point of light represented a world changed, a civilization inspired, and a future shaped by intelligence, courage, and the extraordinary potential of humanity. The journey had begun with loss and grief, but it had ended with triumph and legacy. Humans had proven that resilience, intellect, and moral courage could overcome deception and corruption. They had honored those they loved, inspired allies, and changed the galaxy forever. And somewhere, in the quiet expanse of space, the memory of Alara, Sienna, and Kayla shone like the brightest stars, guiding humanity, inspiring civilizations, and reminding the galaxy that humans, when united by love, intellect, and honor, could achieve the impossible. The story of the 3 human brides and the generals who honored them became a legend, not of war but of brilliance, strategy, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Humans had faced tragedy and emerged not just victorious but exemplary. Across the stars, their influence would be remembered for generations, proving once and for all that humanity was extraordinary in every way. The galaxy had changed, quietly and brilliantly, because humans chose to lead not with force, but with mind, heart, and unyielding honor.